What's going on, Badger fans? Recruiting rankings and Mabrey Mettauer. Are we on the same page here, or is it way off? We're going to talk about that and more on today's Locked On Badger special episode. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Badgers, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings, as always. We're going to get into it. We have Mark Mettauer coming on the show, the father of 2024 quarterback commitment, Mabry. Mark, I want to start here. I really do appreciate the time. What is Wisconsin getting with your son?
Well, besides a great kid, you're getting a family committed to his development, and also the Wisconsin family. We've got another child that's now at Oklahoma. He plays offensive line there, and we know what it takes to play big-time football. I didn't play. I played high school sports. I was pretty good, but I figured out pretty quickly that my brain was probably my best attribute and wanted to become a physician. So did my kids early on, but they're much better athletically than I was. And we just fostered that growing up, that they saw what I did for a living, and they thought sports was pretty easy, and they decided that's what they wanted to do because they have an uncle that played in the league for 9 years, NFL. They have a grandpa that played for Gene Stallings back in the day for Texas A&M, a couple of uncles that played at A&M. And so we know what it takes to play big-time football as a family, and we just have wanted to foster that in their development as kids and giving them every means possible to achieve that goal. So once we, and we're also, once we commit to something, that's where we're going to stick with. So it's been, even though McCade was originally at Cal for 3 years, COVID kind of changed everything for everybody. So that's why he's at Oklahoma now to finish up, because that's really where he wanted to go out of high school, but he was under recruited. And Mabry is, we think, appropriately been recruited. We think gets a little bit of a shade every now and then. We don't really understand why, but hey, that's only going to make him a better competitor in the long run. And I think it's going to put a chip on his shoulder for moving forward when he joins the Big Ten this January.
That's something you and I have discussed kind of offline occasionally too, the recruiting rankings. I wanted to talk to you about that. Kind of two parts here. The first is, as a dad, as a father, is it weird to see your son kind of ranked amongst all these other players? And are there times you just want to reach out and say, no, that's wrong, or yes, you're dead on? Like, how hard is it to kind of see that, or how unique is it to see that?
Well, again, we've seen it both ways. McCade was my older son was a high 3-star, and he committed pretty early to Cal, and it was like his rankings kind of stagnated at that point. I didn't fixate on it. I didn't care. I mean, he was going to a great school, academically very similar to Wisconsin, which is big for us. And from a medical standpoint, Wisconsin's got a great medical history as well. But we really don't focus a whole lot on that, other than to provide ammunition and energy to improve yourself. As a top recruit, especially if you're a number one guy, there's always a target on your back. And Mabry was pretty highly ranked. Some people are saying top 1 or 2 in the country early on, because he got early playing time and had film early on. And so we saw that, but we realized it was very early on. He was kind of a man-child when he was in 8th grade. He actually used to be a lineman. So most people don't know that story except the recruiters like Longo, and are kind of fascinated. So he really didn't start playing quarterback till he was a freshman. And COVID was a real reason why he kind of blew up on the scene as a quarterback, because that's what he really wanted to do. So his brother's a lineman, big kid, but Mabry thinned out and was more athletic from that standpoint. McCade had a great arm too. He could wing the ball 70 yards, no problem, as a senior in high school as a lineman. So, but the rankings are interesting. And I see some of the complaints of the Wisconsin fans that when you get a ranking and then you drop, and We've seen that on the other end with our older kids. So I don't know if there's any truth to it or not. I'm a Aggie um, uh, by graduation. I graduated from Texas A&M, and we're kind of like the redheaded stepchild in Texas to the University of Texas. So it's okay being the underdog a little bit, but by no means do I think this team's going to be an underdog in the near future.
Well, and I want to then focus on your son's scouting report. We've seen the huddle film, we've seen highlights, we've talked to some recruiting analysts, we see the size, the mobility. What is something that we're not seeing on film that Mabry brings to the table?
Well, the one thing that people are starting to recognize that he's a true dual threat, and he considers himself a dual threat, but because he's 6'5" plus and now up to 230 and can move with that weight. Most people list him as pro style, but he's really a dual threat. Not that he's going to want to run, but when he needs to run, he's going to get you the first down. But it's the competitiveness and the leadership. His competitive nature, he's going to put his shoulder down when he wants to, but not stupidly. I mean, he's not going to put his shoulder down against a 250-pound linebacker that can run a 4.5. I mean, he's going to try to avoid that. But if it's a 5'8", 180-pound cornerback and he's got an angle on him, he's going to run over him. So competitive nature, he's pretty chill as the leader on the field, but when it's on the line, he is a little bit of a maniac. So it's kind of been interesting to see him progress from his freshman year, where he came on the scene at big time Texas 6A football, where at the Woodlands, I think there's been 4 or 5 kids that have ever played as freshmen, and I've got 2 of them. And then Mabry played considerable amounts of time at quarterback, but mainly was a runner because of his size. And then his sophomore year, he was real fiery, personal foul for unsportsmanlike conduct about every other game. Then last year it was pretty chill and reserved. So I think you're going to see a nice combination of that this year due to maturity. And he really wants to win a state championship. And we leave the year off with North Shore, which we did last year, which it's either North Shore or Duncanville that win the state championship every year. And we played both of them last year. So he doesn't shy away from competition. He loves playing big time teams. And, these are cats that we're going to be playing against when he gets to college. You got DJ Lagway, who's in our district. That'll be the final game for us. So we'll be playing against Willis. We've got Joseph Jonah, an OA. He's a defensive lineman. He's committed to Georgia. He's in our district along with Justin Williams, I believe. He's an uncommitted 5-star linebacker. So we play against top competition. And I think that's what you don't see, is that those are the types of guys we play against, and he does well against them. So intangible type stuff that we as fans see here on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night here, depending on which night we're playing in Texas.
And what is something, and I want to get into the Texas high school football angle just a little bit with you as well, because I don't think people realize how big that is.
It's insane.
It is. Don't grow up there.
It's absolutely nuts. Yeah.
What is maybe a big area of focus for maybe going into a senior year, something that he's really trying to either level up in or improve at? Is there something specific, or is it just all around?
Absolutely. He's always been working on film. So he does, he works with Sean Salisbury. He was in the league, Minnesota, played for Minnesota Vikings, USC grad. He's a local celebrity down here, does radio shows and such, and coaches Mabry. Sorry, it's been kind of a long day with dealing with patients and everything. But he is taken into the next season. Besides the discipline of reading film, studying film, he's been working with Coach Longo, learning the playbook. Now that'll stop when the season starts, just because he just wants to focus on his final year. But it's his short and really his medium range game. Obviously, he's got a big arm. That's how he came on the scene. His very first pass when he was a freshman was a 55-yard bomb for a touchdown. So we've always known he's been very accurate, long. He can move. That's not a problem. And the decision making is really good. It's just his touch on medium range and some short range stuff. So we've worked really hard on that. The camp circuit has shown us that. And not to be so much of an arm thrower. He has really worked on the lower body, the hips, to make the throws more effortless. And he's definitely getting the ball out quicker. So we've identified, and he's identified some weaknesses that we're just fine tuning. But those are the main ones. Obviously, like I said, it's not the running game for him. It's not really decision making. He makes good decisions as evidenced by the few number of interceptions he has. But it's the short and the medium range game that just take what they give you and don't, throw it 45, 50 miles an hour. So the guy, can't possibly catch it, because that ends up being a pick too. If you throw a little too high and too hard, and then it's a freebie up in the air. So put it to where nobody can catch it but your guy, and at a speed and velocity that he can. It's kind of interesting too. The biggest transition that he had from being at a quarterback from his sophomore year to his junior year, he had probably 8 to 10 fumbles and only lost 4 as a sophomore, but he had only one. He didn't even lose a fumble. He had one fumble, but didn't lose it last year. So that was a big thing for him, was taking care of the ball. And he had the same number of interceptions, I believe, 6 or something like that. So
were most of those fumbles on scrambles, or was it more pocket awareness?
No, it's always on a scramble. Getting caught from behind or the side. It was never on. It was never in the pocket. His hands, he's probably got 11 and a quarter inch hands. So the football is like a biscuit to him. So it's pretty easy to control it. And once we got away from him holding the ball out to the side and, tucking it appropriately when he would take off running, we eliminated the fumbles. So.
No, you love to see the growth there. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about why Wisconsin, why Longo, why really just heading to the Midwest and Big Ten. Coming up next on Locked On Badgers with Mark. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. Also, a quick second to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Love conversations like this because, I talk about it before on the show. I think we get smarter by being able to do this type of conversation. So really do appreciate Mark and everybody tuning in. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. And these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's something our organization uses, the one I'm involved in my IT life. We use LinkedIn. We look at profiles. We use their tools, their special screening tools, just to make sure that you're getting the right people that you want to talk to, and you're not wasting their time or your time. Again, simple tools, screening questions allow you to focus on the right candidates for the right jobs. And it's why small businesses continue to rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job free at linkedin.com/college. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, I do want to say thank you again for everybody tuning in. And let's just continue this great conversation with Mark Mettauer, Mabry's dad. And Mark, I wanted to go here. Phil Longo comes calling. Obviously, has a great reputation for developing quarterbacks. He's done it for a long time. Great passing games. When did you first entertain the idea of Wisconsin, and how long did it feel like it took? Maybe not Mabry, but it took you and your wife to kind of feel comfortable with that.
Well, I'm a little bit different in the way my wife thinks about this, and she's probably going to be a little embarrassed if she watches this. So, but we actually had a visit when Chris was still the head coach and Bobby Ingram. So that's an interesting story. It was in September, and we had an open date to visit because we played on a Thursday night. And Mabry had just gotten an offer or received an offer from Bobby Ingram in the summer. And I thought that was pretty intriguing because, one, it was Big Ten football. We had initially gone on an unofficial visit to Ohio State the previous year. And I likened it to the SEC atmosphere. I mean, it was, I've been to a Northwestern game before. I've been to some lower tier games. We played Illinois, but went to Ohio State, and it was just like going to an Alabama game or Texas A&M game. I mean, Texas A&M home game at night. They talk about LSU being intimidating, which it is, but it's just like physically intimidating. I mean, it's the fans are absolutely nuts. A&M's a different story, but it feels like you're in the Death Star, with 106,000 people there. Football is life here, right?
Mm-hmm.
At Ohio State, I was like, man, this is the same way. The atmosphere is a little different. It was obviously cooler and super nice because it was nice to get out of the heat. And then when Wisconsin came calling, we had a date open, and they were really kind of, I wouldn't say bugging Mabry, but wanting him to come. And I was like, you know what, we got to go look at this. And McCade is my older child, Mabry's brother, the one's the offensive lineman at OU. He was like, dude, you got to go there. They got great offensive linemen. You're not going to do well as a quarterback unless you have some protection. So, unless you want to be running for your life, which you can do. I mean, if you want to have a healthy career, you need, good offensive line in front of you. And that's what we have at the Woodlands too. I mean, our offensive line rivals most FCS schools, if not better, and probably as good as some, lower tier group of five guys. We got Colton Siraki, who's going to Baylor. We've got Ryan Hughes, who's going to TCU. We got Everett Champlin, who's going to West Point, and then a couple of younger guys. I mean, every year it's like this. It's two or three Power Five schools, group of five schools. So our offensive line is our claim to fame here. Besides Antoine Winfield Jr., Super Bowl winner, Danny Amendola, Super Bowl winner, Frank Izzo, Super Bowl winner way back in the day. I mean, we've got more Super Bowl winners, I think, here than any other high school in the country. You can look it up, or rings anyway. So Mabry and I went there. Marissa didn't come. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Gave us the red carpet treatment. And again, I loved it. I thought it was great. And the atmosphere was great. We were playing Washington State, unfortunately, and it was like we had control of that game, and it was just like watching just how it went. It felt like we were playing down to them, and it was just it was really a strange feeling because we had them by the throat, and it was kind of frustrating. And then, of course, we were behind the opposing team's bench, and man, were they talking mad trash. And I was just like, we're visitors, but if we, it was pretty tough to witness. I mean, it was. The students were great. A lot of them knew Mabry. Showed him a great time just while we were walking on the field. And then, we had left with a great taste in our mouth. And then we were still considering Wisconsin. But Phil Longo was putting on the pressure, so to speak, just by being such a great recruiter and a genuine, honest guy from North Carolina. And Mac Brown, you can see why he had the recruiting classes he had, because he's just photographic memory, super personable. Both of them were. And so we were really, we had pretty much decided to go to North Carolina. And then, then there was word. Well, the big news was Fickle going to Wisconsin, which I thought was a great choice. And the first thing I told Mabry was, that they're going to do great because now they got a guy in there that's taking a group of five team, put them in the playoffs and into an area where they're just kind of waiting to win, like win again, so to speak. And but not just get 8 or 9 or 10 wins, but win championships. And then we heard Longo was leaving. We're like, where's he going? And it was like Coastal Carolina, the head coach. He's going to go to this other school, that other school. And we're like, kind of like not really knowing what we're going to do. And then he went to Wisconsin. And I personally thought, I was like, wow, how crazy was that? We went to Wisconsin, really liked it. And now Longo's there with Fickle, who actually had offered Mabry at Cincinnati. Mabry had an offer to Cincinnati as well and didn't consider it really because of where it is, but liked Coach Fickle, liked Coach Dom. And the rest is history, really. I mean, it was like, what are we waiting for? I mean, so what we did with McCade was, okay, here's your choices. What are your top three? Pros and cons of each. For us, it was basically North Carolina, Wisconsin. I mean, what are we waiting on? Because we were going to wait on end of spring. We're going to wait till the summer, whatever. And it was just like, I'm not saying I'm the voice of reason, but sometimes it's just like there's no real reason to wait. And so we sat down early December and pros and cons of each. And really the only con that we could come up with Wisconsin was, okay, it's a 2-hour flight to North Carolina versus 4 hours of traveling to Madison. I mean, both great public universities, top 10 for sure. Get a great education. Fan base is pretty close as far as just how excited they are about the program. But obviously Wisconsin, big on a much bigger scale, more resources. And to be honest with you, just better support on the team as far as players and talent. And, that's pretty much how we made our decision. And, Longo, when he latches onto you, he becomes, like a member of the family too. And it's, he's genuine, he's honest. And like everybody talks about, he really is that type of recruiter. And he doesn't throw out 15 offers and hopes some of the mud sticks to the wall. He picks guys he wants and guys that are going to fit with the program, very much the way Fickle does. Their philosophies are very much aligned. And that was the question I actually had for Fickle was like, are you going to control Longo's offense? He goes, I don't need to. They run as much as they throw. And he knows how to control the tempo of a game. We don't have to score in 90 seconds every time. So we run the same offense essentially, although a much more dated version at the Woodlands. We're trying to implement some of those types of plays here at the Woodlands, but it's very similar. We're 4 out, 5 out. We can line up heavy. Wish we did it more often with tight ends. We don't really have a tight end, but maybe putting Mabry in a tight end if he needs to catch a ball, because that could have been the easiest job ever, was him being a receiver or a tight end. He's got amazing hops and big hands and loves to catch a ball, but he just loves being quarterback more than anything. So,
well, he's got the 6'5" frame. Like, he'd be a dangerous red zone weapon going out in a little post pattern there.
Yeah, if you'll go back in some of the older Twitter posts when he played basketball, it's all in warm-ups, of course, because
yep.
We've got a really good basketball program too. But he's a two-handed dunking machine. He can get up. So
let me ask you this quick, and again, I really appreciate, and with just a couple minutes left, but you were talking about the pros and cons, Wisconsin, North Carolina, measuring some of this up. Some players talk about wanting, for lack of a better term, a helmet school, right? A Texas and Ohio State. Is this reflective of Wisconsin kind of nationally being in that tier, a school that can get to the playoffs with Phil Longo and Luke Fickell? Luke Fickell's done it at Cincinnati. It feels like players coming to Wisconsin or Luke Fickell expect Wisconsin to be able to compete at that highest tier.
Yeah, it's especially for us because and you probably have some people that watch this. Your W, the motion W, that was actually our initial emblem. And then we played a game on ESPN, a national game many years ago, and got a notice from the attorneys at Wisconsin to cease and desist. So we have a different W now. So nationally, yes, it's a helmet logo for sure. Obviously not, let's just be honest, it's not on the level of an Alabama, Georgia, USC even, although USC is, I've been watching some of their defensive workouts, and it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I think when we get them in conference, it's going to be a great matchup.
Yep, agreed.
It's going to end up well for us because our defense is so good. But I think this will help take it to the next level. I fully expect, from what I've seen in person, that we'll win the West. We'll be playing in the Big Ten championship game this year. And like Phil Phil Steele says, and like a lot of other people say, I think we got an outside chance of making the playoffs. Now, if it was 12 teams this year, I would say it's no problem. I love Tanner Mordecai, Braden Locke. I mean, what a great dude. And I know Nick Evers from from Oklahoma when he was there with McCade, and what a stud athlete. So there's not going to be a big step off if something happens in the quarterback room. So and then the talent's always been there at Wisconsin. It's just I think that the depth at quarterback has been the issue for the most part. I mean, running back, you don't have an issue. Offensive line, the defense is always solid. So, I think Fickle's going to take it to the next level. I mean, you've seen it with the guys he's pulling in. I mean, we actually had Kevin Haywood here locally with us out at the lake, and with Landon also with us from Green Bay. And we invited a lot of other guys, but they couldn't make it. Kai and Barry Johnson and Dylan and to come hang out. But Mabry's like I said, when you get Mabry, you get a family. So and I will say this, on the official visits, these coaches have done a great job at picking good matches for the program. These aren't just knuckleheads. I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. As far as being on the recruiting trail with my kids, and there's all the kids are the kids, but you can tell the ones that come from areas where it's not just football that's a priority in their life. It's and I think the coaches see that and recruit that, and that's what Cal has to, like Cal Berkeley. I mean, let's be honest, they got to pick guys that want to probably have education as their number one priority. They're not going to get the top players all the time, or very rarely. So Wisconsin's got a nice mix of that. North Carolina does, but not to the degree that Wisconsin does. And I think this is a perfect amalgamation of coaching that can recruit with current talent on the team. I mean, because it's not like going to be like Colorado, who has a bare cabinet, and when Dion comes in and has to clean house, this is a special situation I think we're in. So we're excited to be a part of it.
We're excited to witness it as fans. Very last question here, and again, I'm really appreciative of your time. And you hit on this a little bit. I wanted in my show notes over here, I have thoughts on Phil Longo and competition. Right, you talked about Braden Locke, Landon Locke, Nick Evers. As a parent, is there any thought process to let's find a depth chart that makes it because players and parents talk about this. Where can I play? What's the easiest path to playing time? It seems like for you and your family that you're going to a place with a lot of competition, and it seems like you've embraced that.
So you're right. And I've seen two different aspects of it. One is, there's 5 offensive linemen, right? It's a lot easier to make the depth chart if you get a scholarship, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not an offensive lineman. I know what it takes to get there from a parent standpoint. But you're right. I mean, as a quarterback parent, it's different. There's only one position on the field. Only one quarterback can play at a time. So it in some ways it does play into where you decide to go. But right now for us, I mean, and to be honest, let's be honest. I mean, the transfer portal has made some of these decisions a little bit easier, to go where you want to go. I mean, if say Phil Longo decides to leave next year, at least you have the ability to try to make a decision what you want to do. Not that we would, because I mean, like I said, we enjoyed Wisconsin before we even knew that was even a thought in the AD's mind to bring in Fickle and Longo. The place is a fit. The area is a fit. I mean, Madison's a lot like Austin, except it's not as kooky. It's actually pretty normal. Right. Food's great, which it is in Austin. A little smaller scale, and the weather's better, except maybe in January or February, but because it's hot down here right now. But anyway, Yeah, you have to think a little differently as a quarterback parent, and that's just and a quarterback. But definitely not afraid of competition. My kids battled as he was a lineman that's converted to quarterback, and nobody really thought much about it until he put in the work to make him be the real deal. So we're happy to put in the work and compete, and Mabry, when he comes in January, is going to put pressure on everybody. So what are our expectations? Our expectations are that he's going to compete and put pressure on the guys above him, and that's good for everybody. So, and then we're not the experts. Phil Longo's the expert. There's no way we think he's not going to put who he thinks is the best player on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So, one way or another, that's we got to trust that that's what's best for the program and what's best for, well, to be honest with you, for the coaches.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I love it. Mark, thank you so much for the time. I really do appreciate it, and would definitely be cheering along with your son for this entire year, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yep. Hopefully, the Sooners and the Badgers will meet up in the national championship. That'd be kind of cool.
You gonna get the split jersey if it happens, or you and the missus each have one side?
We'll probably have one of each and switch at halftime. So,
I love it. Well, Mark, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day, and like I said, I really do appreciate it.
All right, pleasure, Ryan.